This is the Moreish Podcast, where Caribbean history meets culture and cuisine. Hello, and welcome back to the Moreish Podcast. This is Hema, and today we're talking about Carnival. Carnival happens all over the Caribbean and is most known for beautiful, bright costumes, parades, music, and days of fun and fete. But do you know the history behind it? David Bremang is joining me today to talk about the significance and meaning of Carnival in the Caribbean. We're going to dive into music, food, and more. Planning for Caribana here in Toronto is in full swing, so there's no better time to dive into this topic. David is an entrepreneur with a passion for harnessing the transformative power of storytelling. Born in Toronto, he is the founder of FoundMissing.co, an experiential marketing agency. With a Caribbean and African heritage, David has a deep enthusiasm for the history and depth of Carnival, and he found it essential to immerse himself in the Trinidadian and Toronto Carnival space. He's worked with 3 major bands since 2018 and is currently involved with Crown Mastillo, all of which makes him the ideal person for this discussion. We had a few challenges with this audio, but I didn't want to leave this discussion behind. Carnival is so important in the Caribbean, and I really wanted to share this with you. Please forgive us for some of the choppiness in this audio, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, David.
Hello. It's a beautiful Friday, sun's
It's a
out.
beautiful-
It's a bit cold, but it's good for now.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So we were connected by Kiana from the In With Blood podcast. I reached out to her to ask about Carnival and find out if we could find someone who can do a bit of a deep dive into the history of Carnival and the significance. And she recommended you. So thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you.
Why don't we start with a little bit of an introduction of who you are and a bit of your background?
Yeah, I'm David Bremang, born and raised in Toronto. Spent basically almost every summer my mom shipped me off to Trinidad till I was 17. So a lot of the brought up of who I am is coming from Trinidad. I'm half Ghanaian as well, my father. So I got 2 strong cultures that, that make, who I am, which is very interesting and amazing at the same time. Went to school at York University, graduated with a marketing degree, humanities minor, as well as a Seneca Business diploma. So I got that background and it allowed me to basically work in the space of marketing, branding, consulting, strategy, services, and I'm just in that world with several other businesses that I work with, and it's just been fun to have the ability to be creative. And now within the past 5 years, I was able to jump into the Carnival Caribana space of Toronto Carnival, and been amazing to see the behind the scenes of how things work. I've been a model once, never again. I'll never do that. That's just not for me. Yeah. So I've been behind the scenes and understanding the branding and storytelling and marketing of certain bands within Toronto. I've just immersed myself. Thankfully I was raised somewhat in that space, and I just, as an adult now, I've just been able to work.
When you went to Trinidad every year for those 17 years, tell me about that. How was that?
So that's summertime. So literally, like, sometimes the last week of school, I'm already out. And sometimes my mom, I don't know what she was thinking, but sometimes I'd miss 3 weeks of school in September. Like, I would start late. I don't know what bookings she was involved with, but it was just basically summertime. I was there, and it's not really the carnival season, but you still see carnival all around, like throughout the whole year. You see the fetes, the parties, the music that's being released. So I was blessed to be around that.
And, that's a really good point. When I talk about Carnival and Trinidad, oftentimes people don't realize that there is a carnival season. And so when you mentioned in the summertime, there's no carnival, in other Caribbean islands, there may be carnival in the summer or different times of the year. Almost all of the Caribbean islands, Caribbean countries have a version of Carnival, right?
Right. Right.
So I want to talk to you about the origins of Carnival. On this podcast, the Moreish Podcast, we talk about the history of the people of the Caribbean and how that influences current day culture. And Carnival, for a lot of people, or Caribana, do you call Toronto Carnival Caribana, or what do you call it?
Out forever. Yeah. That's all I know. Caribana.
Same. It's always Caribana to me. A lot of people sort of see it as a party, a fete, a time to go out and like wear costumes and hang out. But there's so much more behind it, right? And so much more significant. So can you maybe talk about what the origins of Carnival is?
Yeah, there's extremely deeply webbed, and from the knowledge that we know is that this is not something new, been going on 200 plus years, and these traditions mainly come from West Africa. And what I've been looking at too is even Egypt. So just the style of a procession and giving back to something and praising something or worshiping something in a community manner of just walking around in a parade and listening to music and playing drums and, that movement, it all started from the motherland. And so when the transatlantic slave movement happened, those traditions still came along. And specifically for Trinidad, what happened was within the early 1700s, there was the Cedula population, which were aristocrats from people from Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, all came down to Trinidad. So obviously, at that time, those islands were French colonized. And what they did when they came to Trinidad, they brought their own masquerading balls that they would have specifically the 2 days before Ash Wednesday. So for them, their carnival was removing of the flesh. So they would party and do all these wild things, and that was theirs. But at the time, our African people that were captured, I would like to say, not really slaves, did not have that access to be a part of it. So they would watch and observe and be like, okay, this is what they're doing. We were doing it back home in our own way. And it just became like this marriage of two cultures, of taking from what the French did and what the Africans had. And then you just slowly started to see them do their own thing. And Carnival has always had a backlash or a rebel because, again, it was a communal thing. It brought people together. It brought their culture back together. And it's like, no, we can't have that. So there's always been a fight. And that's where you have old mass, where always bringing up politics and what's happening in society. So there was always in the music, you would hear it. There's always a chant of back and forth of them explaining what's happening, and then slowly we get into Kaiso and Extempo and Calypso, and these are where the stories are being told. So it's I could go for days. There's so much that make this whole engine turn. And specific part of that was in 1888 with the Canboulay Riots. And obviously the Africans that were captured worked on these cane fields, and they were fed up and just couldn't take it anymore. That Carnival was being suppressed, so they burned down the whole fields. And that's where you have the molasses, the wearing of the black, the jab, mimicking the people that once enslaved us. So there's a lot of satire, the Carnival, in that essence of we took what they gave us and we made it our own, and we're still respecting what we did back home as well. So there's a lot of layers, a lot of webs to make it happen. And, music, food, it all comes together in the culture itself. So yeah, it's very,
Yeah, there's so many layers. And you talked about, the enslavers, the colonizers, first having their version of Carnival, and then the African enslaved people really taking over and making it something meaningful, more than just party. Which really is where Carnival stems from, right? And what we see today is Carnival stems from the enslaved people telling their stories and doing their thing, connecting as a community. Now, you mentioned a couple of different aspects of Carnival, and Carnival is more than just the 1 day parade, right? There's
Right.
many different aspects of Carnival, from the costumes and the music, Juve. Do you want to maybe talk about some of the different aspects of Carnival and what encompasses it as a whole?
Yeah, so originally today we see what we call pretty masks, which is the whole costumes, but like the real deal of Carnival really stems from Juve. And that was the representation of the Canboulay Riots of the morning of, is when they burned down all the fields, all the cane fields. And that's where you have like different characters that come out of it. But like, in Grenada, a jab may look different. In Trinidad, there's different types of jabs. There's the blue jab. There's the Indian jab that they call that whips and lashes. There's several different characters that are used, or aged of folklore, but were used to tell that story, which is, again, is just beautiful, And then like when you go to Bahamas and Jamaica, they represent the Junkanoo. That's another aspect which is celebrated around Christmas and New Year's. So it's like, again, within all the islands, the Windwards, the Antilles, it's all happening at once. And Juve is really the premise of Carnival that Monday. And originally it was their date that they did it was around Emancipation, which was 1834, when the British basically broke out of their colonizing Caribbean islands. And you look at Caribana, Toronto, it falls on the first weekend of August, which is similar to Emancipation in Toronto, as well as in Trinidad. They did the same day. John Simcoe, I believe, was a part of that. So it really stems from, to answer your question, I guess, it's that rebellion, that freedom amongst that day, and that's what really Carnival comes from, that ending of oppression. And, and then later on, that's when we got into the costumes and like day 2. The date, they wanted the Emancipation date, but the French kind of said, no, you're going to have it 2 days before Ash Wednesday. And that's where it falls in Trinidad.
And so you talked about a lot of sort of different aspects, right? I think it makes sense then, based on all of what you just said, that Brazil also has a very large carnival, right? Because they also had a very large enslaved population and people that were taken from different places in Africa over to Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know much about that?
I haven't really, I just know that they are the biggest. And when it comes to like their parade, it's like very detailed, very intricate. I haven't been able to touch South America yet, but that's definitely on the list to see what they're doing over there. And this, again, I believe I know Colombia has a carnival as well, but it's just beautiful to see that even in a different continent, they have something going on as well.
And it all goes back to, and can be traced back to, the transatlantic slave trade and the people that were forcibly taken to different places. And it all represents the culture. And, you talked about the storytelling, and you talked about, politics and the meaning behind it. Every year, costumes are different. Music is different. And does that represent then what's going on politically, what's going on culturally in each society, in each country?
I think now it's changed, to be honest. Like when I look back and hear certain songs in like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, it was more based off what's happening around the world. Like, especially with post World War II. If you listen to like a lot of calypso, they took arrangements from like American jazz, and then you had like the influence of Harry Belafonte. Like he basically, like say, he put calypso on the world stage. So it's like it's hard to say where, like, what's happening now. I believe in the music, you're not really hearing the political struggle or what's happening in the country. Some artists do it, and you'll get that in like Kaito, Tempo, but it's not mainstream as it was back then. So it's like you heard it more as calypso was emerging. But yeah, it's a bit different now.
It seems to have taken a little bit of a stray away from the satire and the the political avenues and maybe be just a little bit more about entertainment these days.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned a few different types of music. And I think that's really important because there are many types of music. People sort of associate Carnival and soca, but there's more than that. Do you want to maybe talk about some of the different types of music in the background and where they come from?
This is amazing you brought this up because I've just been on this whole bouillon binge. And some people say like different genres of soca have their time. But for me, I was able to go to St. Lucia last year, first time for Carnival. And just hearing the Creole French side of soca was just like a different world for me. So you have the bouillon, you have Denery, you have plenty of zouk, and I've been studying this for a while, like specifically in Dominica, they studied cadence, which was merged from soca in Trinidad, calypso in Trinidad, and they took some African influence of a genre called jingping, and that's where you have like certain beat that bouillon represents in Dominica that is like, it's unmatched, and it's very popular right now, and for me, it's one of the best things. And when you look at, I feel like almost like every island took from every island. Like what I'm understanding now when it comes to the music that you're hearing, there's a one big fusion. Like there was a time where raga was big, early '90s to early 2000s. You had like Bungie was using soca with reggae and a bit of dancehall, and seeing it happen everywhere. So, me personally, I go for the bouillon and the jab. I like the fast for BPM. That's coming from Grenada. And it's just interesting to see how like Trinidad's, to be honest, personally, Trinidad soca right now is just there's a lot of groovy, slow. I'm not into that. So to hear the other islands and to see them now, small islands is what they would call them, is to like be on the world is a beautiful thing. And see the fusion amongst the islands and working with Africa as well, because you're hearing the Afro beat now in the music. You're hearing the piano. It's just one big pot of Palau. So, like, that's the way I look at it.
There's so much to know about Carnival beyond just what we see here or what the average person knows. Do you have any suggestions for somebody who might be interested in learning more? Where can they maybe start researching or digging into some of this information?
I think honestly, like if you have the opportunity to, like our parents, our mothers, our fathers, people that have been in the industry for a while, like if you could reach out to them and just ask questions. I think there is stuff online, but I feel like the stories, hearing them from actual people, which you can find at like a mass camp or somebody from Toronto Carnival, like just literally reaching out to see who's. It could be like a band leader in Trinidad and Tribe. I feel like if you're around and just in the right circle, asking these people these questions of like, how did this start? Or, there's even podcasts that like in We Blood, like look at the whole relationship that we have here. What you guys are doing at Moreish is amazing for people to understand these things. And online is cool, like to read, but I feel like the personal stories, like I was just watching an interview the other day and like this, I forgot her name, lady was just breaking down like the whole patois in Trinidad and how it's a lost language. And it's like how she's like one of the few people in the country that speak it, so just understanding that side. And I know my mom speak a few words, but I think again, like that storytelling of talking to somebody that is immersed is the best thing you can get out of it.
I agree. I will say, in doing the research for this podcast and trying to dig into the history of a lot of these Caribbean islands and the people, much of what's written and what's available out there is from the perspective of the enslavers and the colonizers. Right. And I think what you're saying is so true, is really getting the true story, the real feeling for what's going on the ground, is to talk to people. And, part of me is worried that if we don't start to document the stories that our elders have to tell us, it's going to be lost forever. I think it's really important to get those stories from people, to carry it forward, to really represent the culture.
Definitely.
You have a little bit of a history with Toronto, Caribana, right? With Crown Mass. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Crown Mass, yes. Shout out to Dion, Casey, Calvin. Yes, big three over there. Yeah, I've been with the team for a while now, and what I like about Crown Mass is they're really being extremely innovative when it comes to, breaking or changing or opening the envelope, like just breaking barriers and taking risks, which I like. And I feel like, as artists and being creative is like something that you have to do. It's something that we have to do to push the culture forward, or else it's going to be the same. The main designer, Casey, is just really amazing at doing that, and making it look cool. And like every year it's just getting better and better and better. So we're just like, as a crew, we're very happy to see that. And today's Friday, the band launches today with Tribal. And it's been cool to see, like, we're really behind the scenes of how things work, budgets and, marketing and planning and events and photo shoots. And it's not easy. People think like, yeah, okay, we just come out Saturday and jump up on the road. Like, there's a lot of moving parts that have to be respected. And it's an art craft at the end of the day. And it just makes me understand that these costumes, this work of art, have to live somewhere. Like, it can't just be like that one day. Like, there has to be something more tangible that, Canadians can see or get or touch and feel and see what's going on. So I think something has to build.
There's so, you alluded to, there's so much work that goes into creating of the costumes. And it's not just actually, as you said, putting together a costume in like that one day jumping up on the road. There's so much intentionality and storytelling and creativity that goes on behind the scenes. And I think people sometimes forget that anybody that's intimately involved with whether it's Caribana or Carnival, this is something that they're thinking about all year long, right? It's not just like, let me just, throw on a costume and put some feathers on and it's very intentional. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give us any little hints about what's going on with Crown Mass this year for Caribana?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Basically, it's so the whole theme for Tribal is the art of mass. So just bringing back to the essence of like why we do this and what's going on, and very like the theme for Crown Mass is like anime/biker. So you're gonna see element of anime and biking in the costumes, which is, to me, again, I've never seen that before, to be honest. Like, the whole storyline is we are the anime characters that are fighting off carnival stormers that are coming to ruin the parade. Like, so we're just a crew on our bike. Like, it's really dope and cool to get that storyline out, which I've never seen before. And, there's elements of biking for like the men, chest pieces that you would wear as a bike. We got the glasses on, the woman's headpiece, frontline headpiece, steering wheel. So there's like elements added, and it's just a beautiful colorway. And yeah, on the road, we will be looking amazing.
By the time this podcast goes live, people will have had a really good look at what's going on. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to take a little departure because there's some criticism I've heard from some people about the skimpiness of costume. And I want to talk about that because it really does offend some people, and some people feel like it's not a big deal and it is what it is. Do you have any opinions on that?
It's definitely heavily layered. We could go back in time and what the French used to call, well, the colonized French people would in Trinidad, they would use the word jamet. Some artists still use it in their songs nowadays as like the woman with that curve and body parts looking a certain way. they were like chastised and like, you're a Jamet, you're this, that, whatever the third. And that name became a community, so to speak. So like the Jamet people, which moved to like Laventille, Barataria, and that side of the Trinidad of Trinidad, were the ones that created steel pan, mask, Jude, all these things came out of that Jamet community. So it's like, again, for a woman, it's that form of expression. If you're comfortable in being the way that you express yourself, then so be it, as long as it's respected by men and not using that power or doing the most. But like, it has changed. It will evolve. There's like, sometimes like there's nothing we could do, but it's like, again, a woman wants to express her way in that way, and if you leave her alone and do what you got to do, then that's a beautiful thing, I feel like. So, and again, it all comes from what was happening back then, not being able to be ourselves and not be able to express ourselves. So it's going to evolve, it's going to change. And, costumes back in the day did not look like what it looks like now. And that, that happens as society does its thing. But, there's thankfully that there's still costumes and bands that represent old days. Like you have the sailor band that's still around. Some people would be like, oh, it's too old fashioned, but it's like elements of old mass, traditional mass is still around. And costumes are just a new part that joined in around 50s, 40s, 50s. So it's still kind of new, I guess. But, yeah, it is a topic.
It is a topic. And I know a lot of people, maybe more so in North America, hypersexualize the women because of the costume or because of the way people dance. And I think that you don't understand what's going on and what Carnival is about. Not about sexualizing women. And I think that's really misunderstood, because that's not why the costumes are there. I think you said it really clearly, is if a woman feels comfortable in expressing herself in a specific way, then that's it. That's fine. It doesn't have any invitation for anybody else to react to her in a specific way.
Right. I agree.
And, I've only been to Trinidad Carnival once, but I would say the feeling there is much more of a community than I find here in Caribana as it stands today. And Caribana of 10 years ago had that sort of community feel, that sort of togetherness. And it doesn't feel the same to me these days. Why do you have any thoughts on that? Why that might be?
Just think sometimes it could be just we're getting older. It's like, it could be that, to be honest, or it's just, I think, as society, as we progress, like you said, these stories and the understandings have to be passed down, or else we're going to lose it. So I think we're just at a time, you have social media. Social media played a major part on choosing or shifting how people think and how they view things. It's like, we got to battle against social media to be like, no, this is what the program is. This is what you're supposed to do. You can't just hop fences and run around. And it's like, it has to be respected. So it's like those stories just have to be enforced to let people know, like, it's not just a running parade, and it's just, I've come to the understanding that this is what it is in Toronto, and there's only so much you could do, really. And it's just culture. It's different everywhere. Math is different everywhere. I heard, I don't know if I read this, but apparently, like in St. Vincent, like it's illegal to even storm the band. Like you will get arrested. I could be wrong, but I read it in a group, but I don't know if the person was boasting or boosting, but again, like we have extraction teams and they pull people out, and highly respected over there. And, hopefully it can happen here one day, but definitely changed.
I mean, you made me feel really old when you said it's possibly that we're getting old, but part of me just sort of feels like it's, the knocking down of the fences and the storming the parade route is a bit disrespectful to all of the work and all of the thought that's gone behind the carnival and the parade and the songs and bringing people together.
Yeah, no, it's again like, and it's social media that changes how Carnival looks. Like the other day, I posted on Instagram, like they don't do fete like this anymore. Like I used to come out of a fete like sweating, drenched, powder, like like again, it's like everything is pretty, everything looks good. Like there's like nobody wants to be on the road anymore. Like,
You in the bio that you sent to me, I picked out a little line that I thought was really important, which is carnival being crucial in society.
yes.
Come on.
It's just it's one of those ones where you really have to experience it to understand why I said that. And just one of those like out of body experiences, like just this high that you get from just being there. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like it, just this feeling that you get. You could be drinking all day long. It'll still hit you. Like it's like the adrenaline that you get, and it's something that uplifts us, and it's something that we look forward to. Even just looking forward to it is just a good feeling, knowing that God's Fair Life in February, I'm going back again. So it's just it's needed because for people that have been oppressed, specifically Black and Indian within the West Indies, it, that form of expression that we need to keep us going and keep us alive. I was reading the other day, you have Michelangelo, that's European art. What's our art? And it should be on the same level. It should be appreciated the same. And we need to keep pushing that and keep pushing that for years and years. There's no art shaming. This is ours. Let's push it. Don't just free.
It is crucial, and there's so much history behind it, right? And that continues, and the storytelling continues. And I think it's people like you and the work that you're doing and educating people about the history and the meaning, so that we don't lose the understanding of the ancestors and why they did what they did to get us to where we are today.
Right.
So, David, I'm going to ask you a question. Did you say you were born in Toronto?
Born in Toronto.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to get you into any controversial situation, but on social media, I've seen this a lot. I also was born in Toronto. My
Right.
parents are Trinidadian. I've seen people say that if you were born abroad, so not in the Caribbean, you
Right.
can't claim it. I'm Trinidadian. And I have thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear what you think.
Right. It's so, yeah, it's a bit complex. So me, I'm Trinidadian by paper. I have my citizenship, but I am as well Canadian as well. Coming here, specifically living in Toronto, you're in a melting pot. So a lot of us don't really associate ourselves as Canadian. Yeah, we are Canadian, but it's like you take from what your parents give you and you kind of claim that. Like, and it's just something that you have tied to more. You may find yourself, I'm more Trinidadian than Canadian, or I'm more Ghanaian. So it's like, I understand people saying like, no, I was born there, so I am, and you're not. So it's a bit, there's layers to it, but I guess I would say I'm Trinidadian by descent. But it's like, for me, with my personal attachment to Trinidad, is that spending all those summers there, like, yeah, I've been here for school, but like summer is like where you get to, like, as a kid, you get to express yourself, be yourself, and take things in. Whether, when you go to school, you come home, you may go outside for an hour, come home, do your homework, same thing. So I'm not going to say I'm raised in Trinidad, but part of who I am comes from that island. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
totally
I mean,
different.
it's the culture, right? You're raised in the culture. It wasn't that for me, it wasn't that my parents moved to Canada and then all of a sudden lived a North American Canadian lifestyle. They still
Exactly.
brought their cultures and traditions with them, which is what I grew up with. And And like you said, certainly that doesn't mean that I live the day-to-day life that a Trinidadian person living in Trinidad would,
Correctly.
but it's a cultural thing. And so it sort of saddens me when people want to take that away from us.
Right.
Just by virtue of the fact that we weren't born in Trinidad or Jamaica or Barbados or wherever.
Right.
Culturally, we bring that with.
Definitely. That's
I want to ask you, what really led to your wanting to do more of a deep dive into Trinidad Carnival, Caribana in Toronto, and learning more about it?
yeah. So the way, like, as a kid, but what my mom would do, probably like, it all started with my mom just making me watch like VHS videos of like 1989 steel pan desperados in Trinidad. And then I remember as a kid, I have a picture of it, but she brought me to the grandstand at Prince of Gate, and I would watch, and I used to be scared of the Moco drummies as a kid, like as they would come for Caribana. So I'd see that, and then boom, go to Trinidad, see everybody talk and rave about Carnival. And at the time, I couldn't go because I was in school. So like the exams would be around February, Trinidad Carnival in university. So I couldn't go. And then I graduated and I was able to go. 2015 was my first Trinidad Carnival. And then from there, I'm like, yeah, I'm sold. Like different. My first Caribana, I was in grade 11. Grade 11. So people would think like I was always here for Caribana. No, like that was my first experience. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. But like Trinidad for me, like sealed the deal. Just seeing the whole orchestration of how things work, the organization, the event leading up, steel pan fighting, calypso, semifinals, like the watching the parade of like the jabs, the midnight robbers, like all the characters coming into life and just seeing it happen. All there for me was that was it. I was golden. I'm like, I need to be involved more. I want to learn the back end, understand how things work, and yeah, I'm here now.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and maybe because I haven't been to Caribana in a few years, that I see missing, or that I missed, that I saw in Trinidad, was people of all ages
Oh
on
yeah,
the parade route, right? I think you mentioned earlier some of the older with costumes, the sailors,
yeah,
costumes that maybe what people would consider more modest, the older people who participate. All of that was part of the Trinidad Carnival that I went to. I think it was 2012 or 2013.
no,
But that I don't
music.
really see here.
Yeah, you'll see maybe like a one small band, like or like a float even, but not pushed, And down there, like it's so funny. I played with Spirit in Trinidad this year, and we were waiting to get ready to cross the stage, and Sailor Band was crossing us, and it was just so funny because they're looking at us like, yeah, you guys have to respect us, like we had to make sure that they passed us before we went, and it was just like amazing just to watch them pass by. It was cool, like be like your OG doing their thing.
Doing their thing. And you know that they've probably been there every year for like 40 years.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, and they were talking some smack to us just for kicks, like just like yeah, all right, weeds, yeah.
Did they have their powder?
Oh yeah, they had everything. Yeah, yeah. Sailor was nothing changed. Live band playing on the float, like it's just amazing.
Having the best time that, they look forward to every year.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing about Trinidad. You have the whole ecosystem. Everybody's involved. All the different events leading up to that those 2 days. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good time. It's historic. There's a lot to know about it. And I think there's, some great significance. You talked earlier about every Caribbean country kind of having a little bit of a nuance for themselves, right? And learning from each other. You've been to Trinidad Carnival and St. Lucia?
St. Lucia, yeah. St. Lucia, Miami, Toronto.
Any plans to go to a different country?
I'm doing St. Vincent, going into St. Lucia. Like, okay, because Lucia was so good last year. my whole crew is like, we need to go back again to make sure we weren't dreaming. So I'm doing this double tour. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but then Vincent going into St. Lucia and then hopefully maybe Grenada. I want to get it all out and try new things next year. So
Experience all of them.
yeah, if I could, yeah, I don't claim myself as a carnival chaser. It's just wherever I end up, I end up. Again, like I like fast soca. So I know when I go to those islands, I'm getting it. Trinidad sometimes a bit too slow for me, but yeah, a lot of groovy.
A lot of people that would probably be listening don't understand the difference between fast and groovy.
Yeah.
Can you like give it in a nutshell what that is?
Groovy is a slower tempo, basically coming from more of the calypso style. And, soca now is mixing of, the African drumming with Indian processions and fusing that together to make more of a faster tempo that you got in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Blackman, he basically came up with that term, which is Nyla's grandfather, to coin what soca is. And soca, just, there's so many cadences, there's so many different styles of beats, and then that's where you break into. Zouk kind of has its own range, but like I was saying before, you have the bouillon, you have Denery, which is coming from St. Lucia, you have the jab from Grenada, that style, that drumming, and again, all relate back to Africa. That those styles of what they were doing. So it's interesting to see where everybody is now and how every island is taking from every other islands, and see Trinidad and Haiti work together. We're producers, like amazing. Barbados has a bashment style that's more like, Jamaican reggae fused. Like it was just one big pot.
One big pot.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sort of the origins of calypso. Very big part of Trinidadian culture. What are the origins and where does that sort of come from?
The calypso you had back, like talking way back when it started with like Kaisto and Tempo, and it was again that political voice that came out and satire talking about how things are going. And you have guys like Lord Kitchener, Barrow that will talk about like lady problems and lady issues. Just very funny, sometimes even hypersexual, but it's like you have to catch it. Like it's not just, you're not going to say something out loud, but it's like nuances of relationships, of life, of what's going on. And, Calypso was that way of telling these stories. And then as you get into like the 40s, like post-war, that's when, things change and more of a like American influence happened, because the Americans had their big in Trinidad, and like, the Killers, they brought their music in and their brass instrument. That's when you see Calypso now taking the brass and have that American feel to it, jazzy feel to it, instead of just the drumming. And it was fused with their like rhythm section and how they would use the tackback and cowbell and all these things mixed in with horns, and it just became this one fusion of everything to make what Calypso is. And it's still respected today and forever will be. They have Calypso Monarch. I've been to Calypso semifinals many times, and it was just vibes. So Calypso is the heartbeat of soca. Without Calypso, there's no soca. I think, later on in the 70s, 80s, that's where you saw the branch off, and, Marshall was able to take it to the world. They're both beautiful genres. My favorite Calypso artist, Super Blue. And
what's really interesting is Carnival in itself, as we talked about, really has its origin in the times of slavery, and really a lot of African traditions, the enslaved people brought this in. Specifically in Trinidad, there is a big Indo-Caribbean population that has integrated into this.
Yeah, first off, I am chutney Rastaman. That's what I would call myself. I love a chutney. I love, like, I have, my mother is half Indian, so it's like I've been immersed in that as well, and to see that fusion alone come together, because you have chutney and then you have chutney soca, which is like another branch that, we even forget about that, which I feel needs to be played more. You don't really hear it too much. But it's like, again, like Drupati, but it's like, yeah, you have these artists that like have brought, the Indo style stuff. Some even speak Hindi. Like, it's just to see that whole other world, it's there, which I feel, again, it needs to be pushed more, or more mainstream. But to see that marriage happen is amazing. Being the two strongest cultures in the country, the African and Indian, come together and make a genre of music is one of the best things you could have. And then, with the music, then you have the food, and then you have the events, the party styles of dancing is different. The drumming, the tassa, all that coming all into one. Trinidad. There you go.
Tassa is like, listen, that speaks to my heart.
If I ever get married, it will be at my wedding.
It speaks to my heart, speaks to my soul when I hear it.
Oh, definitely. So it's just beautiful to see that marriage happen between the two cultures and make beautiful music out of it.
I think it's really important to remember that there is so much meaning and significance behind the party. Yes, It is a party, it's a fete, it's a good time, but there's so much behind it. And like you said, I don't want us to lose those stories and the understanding and the meaning behind it, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, to lend a little bit of context to the party that we see in Toronto, the party that we see on TV, in social media, because it's more than just a fete and a good time. And yes, there's a lot of music and beautiful costumes and people and food, but let's not lose why it came about in the first place.
Caribana.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions that are just, super easy. What's your favorite food to eat when you touch down to Trinidad?
I would say doubles, because unfortunately in this country, there's no good doubles. So when you land down there, it's like you kind of have to and just get it out. Me, I have like 4 in one setting and I'm good for the rest of the trip. I don't know.
I've got doubles. I think the last time I was there, our plane landed at something like 5 a.m. and
right away.
The doubles man was open. So of course we had to stop.
Right away. Standard procedure.
Has to be. What is if you had to choose your favorite musical genre, what would it be?
Well, if it's soca, I can't go a day. This is healing. This is therapy. Like, I can't go a day without it. The happiest people, like, hey, like, why are you so happy? Why is it happy? I'm like, the happiest music keeps me going. It's a form of therapy. I need it. So, yeah.
You can't help but be in a good mood, I think, when you listen to soca, or for me, even like calypso or chutney or any of it.
Yeah, definitely.
If somebody is brand new, let's talk about Toronto, Carnival, Caribana. Somebody's brand new and they're interested. It can be a little bit intimidating, right? When you see all of these people who have played mass for years. How does somebody maybe find their way in to get involved?
Almost like what I was saying before, it's like going to the mass camps, like just to be, and I'm not saying it's lost, but it's like the communal aspect of just being at the mass camp. It's there, depending on the mass camp or the band, but it's like just being there as much as you can and just pulling up and again, like talking to people and introducing yourself and just getting familiar with who's who and who's making the wire bras and who's making the big mass, like just ask questions like, how was this done or what changed back in the day? And I think, again, like just being in person, whether you just find out who somebody is, DM them like, hey, will you be at the mass camp this day? Pull up, and these people are friendly and willing to talk. And what Indian people, they love to talk. So,
too much sometimes.
So you'll get the insight. I think being in Toronto, that's probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I agree. It can be intimidating. And I think what you just said is people are friendly and they're willing to talk. You just have to be open to it and open the door and people will embrace it. So before we Before we wrap up this conversation, let's talk about what you're working on these days and what you have going on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot going on. I currently co-manage artist Free in the music space. Focuses on hip hop, rap, dancehall, R&B. He just does everything. So we got a few projects dropping out. Crown Mass as of today is our band launch with Tribal. It's recorded. So for the next few months, we're gearing up and getting ready to tell the story that we want to tell and just be authentic and working with the brand that we work with to do that. Which you have some events and things going on within the community to again tell that story. There's a lot we're gonna be doing leading up to that day, that Saturday when we're all on the road. So just now keeping busy and going to the math camp and building the costumes and getting everything ready. So I believe Carnival technically starts, I think, whatever the Monday is, so that's July 7th or the 8th. I think that's when the Toronto Carnival really starts. So that's when everything is kicked off, all the events. And I will be at King and Queen for sure.
If people want to know more about what you're working on and get a little peek into the work that you're doing, not only with Crown Mass, but all of the other things, where can they connect with you?
Yes, my Instagram is at the David at the main marketing agency that I run is foundlisting.co. We focus on experiential marketing, consulting, strategy, branding, design, you name it, event planning, all that stuff. That's us. Crown Mass TO at crownmass.to under Tribal. Gonna be an exciting summer.
Thank you so much for taking the time on launch day to have this conversation with me. I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge, and I look forward to, right after this, going to the Crown Mass website to see what's going on.
Yes, for sure. And thank you for giving me the platform to talk. And yeah, it's been good.
Thanks, David.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining me on today's Carnival episode of the Moreish Podcast. I'll drop details and links in the show notes if you'd like to connect with David and learn more about his work. There's so much history to Carnival, and hopefully we've inspired you to learn more, dive into the music, and join the fun. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Moreish Podcast. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at the Moreish Podcast. Come back next week for our next episode.